2 boys were drowning in a frozen river. Ethan dove into the ice and saved them, but they didn't cry or speak. They just ran. Hours later, a blonde woman emerged from the blizzard, dressed in black. "Those were my sons," she said. "Saving them just made you a target." She placed a black sheath knife in Ethan's hand. "They're coming for you now." Engines roared. Shadows moved between the frozen pines. Ethan realized the rescue wasn't luck. It was the first shot of a war he never expected. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and the miracles God hides in the darkest places. Winter pressed itself over the Cascade Mountains with a cold so sharp it seemed to etch the world into glass. Mist drifted low across the valleys, tangled with falling snow, blurring the outlines of pines and cliffs into a colorless watercolor that breathed frost into the air. Ethan Cole had always trusted silence. Snipers lived inside it, shaped by it, sustained by it. But today, that silence wrapped around him too tightly, like a warning tucked inside the quiet. He had been on leave for 12 hours, just long enough to breathe air that didn't taste like exhaust and cordite, long enough to pretend he belonged in a world where missions ended and people returned to ordinary lives. But rest clung to him with the awkward weight of a borrowed coat. Peace was a luxury he didn't know how to wear. The truck rumbled beneath him as he wound along the icy mountain road, the heater blowing weakly, the windows fogging at the edges. Beside him, Shadow slept with one ear twitching, alert even in dreams. The German shepherd had endured things no creature should remember, yet he carried himself with the calm certainty of something that refused to break. Ethan envied that. They were both built for danger, carved by combat into sharp edges, and now struggling to remember what life looked like without an enemy. The Cascades were supposed to help. That was the lie Ethan told himself. The truth was simpler. Quiet places made him confront the memories he avoided in the field. The guilt, the ghosts, the moments he replayed in the dark. A gust of winter wind slammed against the windshield, rattling the glass. Ethan slowed as the road curved toward an old wooden bridge stretching across a swollen river. Winter runoff had turned the water fierce and violent, churning pale beneath the storm-gray sky. He'd crossed this bridge the night before in the dark, without thought or worry. But now something inside him went still. Shadow's head snapped up, ears forward. Ethan followed the dog's stare. At first he saw only the river, a frozen breath lingering above the rapids, snow swirling into its current. But then a flicker of movement cut through the white, a small shape twisting, swallowed, resurfacing in frantic bursts. A child, then another. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed into a single point of clarity. Ethan threw the truck into park. His boots hit the snow before he fully registered the motion. Training took over, the kind engraved into bone: assess, commit, move. The cold hit him like a fist the moment he plunged into the river. The shock shot up his spine, ripping the breath from his lungs. But he pushed through it, slicing against the current, eyes locked on the small body, fighting to stay above the surface. He reached the first child, thin arms, trembling body, small enough to fold into one hand, and pulled the boy against his chest. The second child drifted farther, caught in a violent swirl of water that dragged him under. Ethan threw himself deeper into the current, catching the collar of a soaked jacket and hauling upward with a strength summoned from sheer refusal to let death win today. His muscles burned. His skin felt like it was splitting from the cold, but the kids were alive. That was enough. He dragged them to the riverbank, collapsing onto the snow-covered gravel as the children coughed water from their lungs. Their small bodies shuddered violently, but they did not cry. They did not scream. They did not speak. Ethan knelt beside them, chest heaving, fingers numb, trying to assess their condition. The children looked at him with wide, bright eyes that held something he couldn't read. Fear, yes, but also a strange, silent understanding that didn't belong to faces so young. They exchanged a glance, rehearsed, quick, purposeful. Then they ran. They sprinted into the trees with unnatural coordination, disappearing between the snow-laden pines without hesitation, without the clumsy panic of children fleeing danger. Ethan froze. A rescuer expected gratitude, confusion, clinging panic. Not this. The cold seeped into him, merging with the confusion twisting through his thoughts. Something about the way they moved, deliberate, trained, silent, told him this was no accident. Kids who nearly drowned don't run like that. Kids don't hold their breath underwater that long. Kids don't look at a stranger as though confirming a prediction. Shadow padded up behind him, pressing against Ethan's leg with quiet urgency. The dog stared into the tree line, posture rigid, ears angled sharply toward the stillness of the forest. Ethan turned its attention to the woods. Snow drifted lazily between the trees, muffling sound, swallowing footprints. Nothing moved. Nothing breathed. The silence wasn't natural. It was waiting. Ethan stood slowly, water streaming from his clothes, freezing instantly against the winter air. He scanned the tree line again, pulse steady, but sharp. This wasn't over, not even close. He replayed the moment the children exchanged that look, the message in it, the acceptance, the eerie lack of surprise, as though they knew he would be there, as though they had been taught not to fear drowning, but to fear something else, something still in the woods. Shadow leaned forward, growling under his breath, soft, controlled, warning. Ethan whispered, "What do you see, buddy?" The dog didn't move. His stare didn't waver. Ethan understood that look. Something was out there, watching, studying, deciding. The winter wind shifted, carrying the faintest hint of something metallic, like cold steel hidden beneath the snow. Ethan stepped backward toward his truck, never turning his back fully to the woods. Whatever this was, whatever he had stepped into, the river rescue wasn't the event. It was the trigger. He climbed into the truck, dripping, shivering, but focused. Shadow jumped in beside him, still alert. As Ethan turned the key and the engine rumbled to life, he looked once more at the place where the children vanished. He didn't know their names. He didn't know where they'd gone. But the truth settled into him with the weight of winter. Rescuing them was not the end of something, it was the beginning, and whatever waited in the mountains had just noticed him. Winter tightened its grip on the Cascades as Ethan Cole drove deeper into the mountains, his clothes still damp from the river rescue, and his mind circling the same impossible thoughts. Snow drifted across the road in slow, deliberate spirals, glowing faintly under the muted daylight. Shadow sat upright in the passenger seat, rigid and alert, his breath forming small clouds of steam in the cold air. Ethan couldn't shake the silence the children left behind. Most kids who nearly drowned cry out, cling to whoever saved them. But these two ran without hesitation, slipping into the forest like animals trained for escape. Something had chased them long before the river did. He replayed the strange look they exchanged, the unspoken signal, the confirmation, the eerie calm. Kids that young shouldn't have looks like that. A memory tugged at him from an old mission briefing overseas. Photos of children altered, molded, trained by hands that never should have touched them. He forced the thought down. This was America, not some war-torn zone. Snow slammed hard across the windshield as the wind picked up. Ethan slowed the truck when he spotted a shape ahead. A slender figure standing on the side of the road, half shadowed by a cluster of frost-covered pines. A woman, too still, too composed, too out of place in a snowstorm. Shadow's growl rumbled low and steady. Ethan's hand hovered near the knife on his belt, tension crawling along his spine. As he rolled closer, the woman stepped forward, the winter light revealing more details. Long blonde hair braided down her shoulder, snow melting against her pale skin, a black, form-fitting suit clinging to her frame. Practical, tactical, but not military issue. A suit made for movement, for stealth. She raised one hand not to wave him down, but to signal him to stop, her expression unreadable, shaped by something deeper than fear or exhaustion. Ethan braked, engine humming quietly through the cold. The woman approached his door without hesitation. Her steps left no sound in the snow. Her breath didn't fog as much as it should have, and her eyes, sharp, bright, and unsettling, didn't look at him like a stranger. They looked at him like a complication. Ethan rolled the window halfway. "You all right?" he asked, voice steady. The woman shook her head slowly, not in denial, in disappointment, as if she had arrived too late for something crucial. "You shouldn't have pulled them from the river," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but grief trembled beneath it. Ethan's heart slowed, then kicked harder. "The kids!" The woman blinked once, a controlled motion. "My sons." Sons. Ethan felt a jolt of realization snap through him. 2 children, silent, synchronized, terrified, running. "They needed help," Ethan said. "They were drowning." "They weren't drowning," she answered. "They were trying to escape." Her words fell like frost cracking under footsteps. Ethan stepped out of the truck, cold air cutting into his skin. The wind whipped snow across their boots, but the woman didn't seem to feel it. Shadow pressed close to Ethan's side, gaze locked on her. The woman studied the dog briefly, not fearfully, more like recognition. "You're Ethan Cole," she said. Not a question, a fact she had prepared for. Ethan stiffened. "How do you know my name?" "Because they told me," she replied. "My sons." A chill far colder than the winter air slid down Ethan's spine. He tried to picture how they could have spoken, when they had said nothing at all after he saved them. The woman exhaled slowly, pain tightening her jaw. "They don't speak with words," she said. "Not anymore." Ethan frowned. "Lady, you need to tell me what's going on. Those kids need medical attention. They were practically frozen." "They've survived worse than the river," she murmured. "Far worse." Ethan took a step closer, snow crunching beneath him. "Where are they now?" The woman didn't answer immediately. Her eyes shifted toward the tree line, reading something in the forest Ethan could not see. "They're running. They think they're protecting me. They always think that." A tremor ran through her, small, but not from the cold, from guilt, from memory. Ethan felt the weight of her grief before she spoke again. "They were taken from me once, used, altered, broken, and rebuilt, not by monsters with fangs or claw, but by men with clipboards and clean boots." Ethan's jaw clenched hard. He knew exactly what kind of men she meant. "I got them out," she continued. "I've kept them hidden for years. But yesterday, someone found us. They chased the boys into the river." Her voice cracked, barely audible. "And you pulled them out. You changed the path. You made them visible again." Ethan glanced at the road, at the woods, at the storm, tightening like a fist around them. "Why did they run from you?" She lowered her gaze. "Because they think I'll sacrifice myself if they're caught. They think it's the only way I'll be safe." "Is it?" Ethan asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her coat, slow, deliberate, and pulled out a black sheath knife. Not military issue, not ceremonial, something older, something with weight and history. She held it out to him. Ethan didn't take it. "What is this?" "A warning," she said, "and a promise." "Of what?" Her eyes locked with his, haunted, sharp, unwavering. "They will come for you now." She stepped closer, closing his fingers around the knife. Her touch was cold, too cold. "Keep this," she whispered. "You're part of this, whether you want it or not." Ethan swallowed. "Who's coming?" The woman looked over her shoulder at the forest as though expecting it to open and devour them. "Everyone!" A distant sound echoed across the mountains, an engine, faint but growing. Not one, several. Ethan's pulse spiked. Shadow growled deeper. The woman took a single step back, her expression tightening. "Find my sons," she said. "Before they do." "Where do I start?" "Follow the cold," she murmured. "It will lead you to them. It always does." And then, before Ethan could ask another question, she slipped into the storm, her silhouette swallowed by snow and mist as if the mountains themselves reclaimed her. Ethan stood frozen, the black sheath knife heavy in his palm. The engines grew louder, closer. Shadow barked once, urgent. Ethan closed his fist around the blade. The woman was gone. The boys were alone, and whatever was coming for him, too. Winter pressed down harder as afternoon bled into the edges of dusk, turning the Cascades into a maze of white silence and dark tree lines. Ethan Cole kept the truck crawling along the icy road, one hand tight around the black sheath knife the blonde woman had forced into his grip. Shadow sat tense beside him, eyes fixed on the mirror as if expecting the storm itself to take shape and follow. The distant sound of engines from Chapter 2 had faded, but the unease remained, stretched thin across Ethan's nerves like a wire pulled too tight. The woman's words repeated in his mind in a rhythm he couldn't shake. "Follow the cold. It will lead you to them." But cold was everywhere now, smothering the world like a warning written across the sky. Half a mile later, flashing lights appeared through the snowfall, blue and red pulsing against the pines. Ethan slowed instinctively. A police SUV was parked sideways across the road, engine running, snow piling against its tires. Two figures stood beside it, bundled in winter jackets, but with badges glinting under the emergency lights. Shadow's growl rumbled low again. Ethan breathed out through his nose, steadying himself. He had nothing to hide except a knife given by a mysterious woman whose sons were running from a military-grade nightmare, and except the fact that someone dangerous was looking for him right now. The older officer approached the truck first, a man in his late 40s, shoulders broad, posture cautious in a way that spoke of long winters and too many calls that didn't end well. The younger one, maybe mid-20s, hung back, scanning the tree line with the jittery tension of someone who didn't trust what lived in the woods. Ethan lowered the window. "Afternoon, officers." "Couldn't really call this afternoon anymore," the older man replied, his breath fogging in heavy bursts. "Deputy Marshal Grant, this here's Deputy Torres. You mind stepping out a moment? Got a few questions." Ethan hesitated, then opened the door, boots crunching in the snow. Shadow jumped out beside him, positioning himself between Ethan and the officers, tail low but posture ready. Grant eyed the dog respectfully. "Shepherd, huh? Good breed, loyal." "Yeah," Ethan said. "Saved my life more than once." Torres flinched at a distant echo through the woods, a thud, nothing more, but in winter silence even small sounds carried weight. "You been traveling this road long?" Grant asked. "Couple of hours." "Anyone pass you? Any unfamiliar vehicles?" Ethan kept his expression neutral. "Why?" Grant exhaled slowly, watching Ethan carefully as though measuring what kind of man he was. "Because about 30 minutes ago, someone reported a group moving through these woods. Armed, coordinated, not locals." Ethan felt something cold slide down his spine. "What kind of group?" Torres answered before Grant could. "Iron Veil." The name dropped like a stone through the snow-muted air. Ethan didn't react outwardly, but the name sparked something he'd only heard whispers of. Black market paramilitary contractors, disappearing from overseas operations only to surface in quiet corners of America. Ghosts with guns. Grant seemed to note Ethan's silence. "You've heard of them?" "Enough to know they don't travel for sightseeing," Ethan replied. "No, they don't," Grant said. "And they don't come into Cascade County without a reason." Torres adjusted her gloves, shifting nervously. "People say Iron Veil doesn't hunt targets. They hunt stories. Anyone who gets tangled up in the wrong thing becomes useful to them. Or dangerous." Ethan kept his voice steady. "So what does that have to do with me?" Grant's eyes hardened in a way that wasn't hostile, just prepared. "Because they were seen near the river, near where someone reported hearing children yelling not long before the storm swallowed the sound." Ethan didn't correct him. The children hadn't screamed at all. Torres continued, "And we have a witness, a fisherman, said he saw a man dragging 2 kids out of the water, said the kids ran, said the man looked military." She let the implication hang. Ethan tightened his grip on the knife hidden in his coat. "You think I did something wrong?" "We think something happened," Grant said carefully. "Something we don't understand yet. And that puts you in danger whether you like it or not." Before Ethan could reply, the wind shifted, bringing with it a sharp crack, branches snapping somewhere in the tree line. Shadow jerked his head toward the sound, body coiled. Grant rested a hand on his holster. Torres took a reflexive step back. "Animal," she whispered, but even she didn't believe it. Ethan scanned the trees. The cracking wasn't movement, it was weight, intent. Someone was testing the perimeter, testing them. "Officers," Ethan said quietly, "if Iron Veil is here, you two shouldn't be standing in the open." Grant's jaw tightened. "We protect this county. We don't run from shadows." "You should," Ethan muttered. "These aren't shadows." The older man studied him again, something calculating passing behind his eyes. "You talk like someone who's seen them up close." Ethan didn't answer, but the truth hung between them anyway. Torres's voice dropped to a whisper. "Deputy Grant, what if he's the one they're after?" Ethan felt both officers' eyes settle on him. Grant exhaled, a slow and heavy breath. "Then we need to know why." Ethan opened his mouth to tell them the truth or some version of it, but headlights suddenly broke through the snow behind them. Another vehicle, fast, too fast for icy roads. Torres spun around. "Are we expecting backup?" Grant frowned. No. The oncoming truck didn't slow. Ethan's instincts snapped alive. "Move!" he barked. Grant grabbed Torres and dove aside just as the truck skidded sideways, nearly clipping Ethan before slamming into a snowbank. The doors flew open. Two men jumped out. Dark clothing, tactical gait, not law enforcement, not hunters, iron veil. Shadow lunged forward, barking viciously. One of the men raised something, a scanner, pointing it directly at Ethan as if confirming a lock. "Target identified," the man said. Grant drew his weapon. "Hands where I can see them." Torres mirrored him, but the iron veil men didn't flinch. One smiled. Ethan cursed under his breath. They weren't here to fight the police. They were here to take him. He grabbed Grant's arm. "Deputy, you need to get off this road." Grant didn't look away from the intruders. "We don't run." "Then you'll die," Ethan growled. "These men don't arrest people." The Iron Veil agent stepped forward. "Ethan Cole, come with us." Grant tensed. "How do you know his name?" "Doesn't matter," Ethan said sharply. "Back up, now!" For the first time, Grant hesitated, not from fear, but because he finally understood something real and deadly had landed in his county. The second Iron Veil attacker reached behind his jacket, not for a gun, for something smaller, faster. Ethan recognized the motion a split second before it happened. A tranquilizer pistol. Ethan shoved Grant sideways as the shot cracked through the snowstorm. The dart missed Ethan by inches. Shadow roared, charging. Ethan didn't think. He moved. He grabbed the knife the woman had given him, its weight strangely grounding, as if the metal carried purpose. "Cole!" the Iron Veil agent shouted. "Don't make this harder." "I'm just getting started," Ethan said. And the winter-white world exploded into motion. Winter swallowed the road in a blur of white as chaos erupted around Ethan Cole. The sharpened hiss of tranquilizer darts sliced the air, the muffled thud of boots hitting snow, the sudden growl of Shadow charging toward danger. It all blended into a storm of instinct and violence that felt far too familiar. Ethan ducked behind the police SUV as another dart snapped past his ear. Grant returned fire with steady precision, but the bullets didn't slow the Iron Veil operatives. They scattered with tactical ease, their movements too crisp for common thugs. Ethan recognized that rhythm, the choreography of men trained to end conflicts quickly. One of them fired another shot. Torres yelped and dropped to her knees, the dart sticking from her collar. "Torres!" Grant shouted, grabbing her and dragging her behind the SUV. She blinked sluggishly, fighting the sedative. "Not normal dosage," she whispered. "They're using military-grade stuff?" "Yeah," Ethan muttered, gripping the knife tighter. "That's their style." One of the Iron Veil men advanced through the snow, his footfalls nearly silent. "Cole," he called out evenly, "stand down. You're only making this worse for everyone." "Funny," Ethan replied, peering around the bumper. "That's exactly what people like you said the last time you tried to disappear someone." The operative didn't bother responding. He aimed again. Shadow lunged at him from the side, teeth sinking into the man's arm. The attacker cried out, stumbling. Ethan sprang from cover, crossing the distance in 3 strides. The knife flashed once, clean, controlled, disabling the man's weapon arm without lethal force. The operative collapsed, clutching his wound. "Back!" Another Iron Veil soldier shouted, firing again. Ethan rolled into the snow, breath ripping from his lungs at the freezing impact. Grant fired toward the tree line, covering Ethan for a brief moment. "Cole!" he yelled. "Why are they after you?" "Ask them!" Ethan snapped, rising to a crouch. Another tranquilizer dart hit the door beside him with a metallic thud. Too close. Way too close. Iron Veil wasn't trying to kill him. They wanted him alive. That was worse. Much worse. "Grant," Ethan said, his breath misting in frantic bursts, "you need to get Torres out of here. I'm not leaving you." "You don't have a choice?" A heavy crack split the air as something dark slammed into the snow behind them. A drone, half-crashed but still humming. Its lens tracked Ethan even while sparking. Grant stared at it. "What the hell?" "Target recon," Ethan said. "They're marking me for extraction." From the woods came another sound. 3 more Iron Veil shadows emerging. Too many. Too organized. Ethan's mind clicked through options like gears grinding against each other. He couldn't win this. Not here. Not now. But he could still run. He grabbed the downed operative's vest. Ripping free a small smoke canister, he slammed it on the ground. A thick cloud of white smoke billowed out, mixed instantly with the natural snowstorm. Perfect camouflage. "Grant!" Ethan shouted. "Get her in the SUV and go downhill. Do not stop. Do not follow me." The older deputy hesitated only a split second before pulling Torres into the vehicle. "Cole, you better not die out there." "Not planning on it." Ethan sprinted into the forest, Shadow at his side. The dog matched his pace flawlessly, neither afraid nor confused, only ready, as if this chaos had lit something ancient inside him. Behind them, gunfire cracked, distant and disoriented as the smoke swallowed visibility. Ethan cut through the frozen underbrush, lungs burning. The forest closed around him like a cathedral of ice, the trees groaning under heavy snow. Shadow trotted ahead, nose low, ears sharp, following something or someone. Ethan pushed branches aside, knife still in hand. His pulse hammered in a disciplined rhythm, the rhythm of a man who had outrun death before, but knew death was patient. A sound drifted through the trees, not gunfire, not footsteps. A soft metallic chime, like something tapping against stone. Shadow froze, hackles rising. Ethan crouched behind a fallen log. The wind shifted. Snowflakes swirled, and she stepped out. The blonde woman from before. Her black suit was dusted with frost, her breaths controlled and unhurried despite the storm. Her eyes landed on Ethan. Relief, guilt, steel all wrapped into a single look. "You came," she whispered. Ethan swallowed hard. "Iron Veil found me." "I know." Her voice cracked. "They tracked the boys, and through them, they tracked you." "Where are they now?" Ethan asked. "The boys?" She looked over her shoulder. "Close, but they're moving. They think they're protecting me. They don't understand what's coming." A distant shout echoed from the woods. Iron Veil was still hunting. Ethan stepped closer, his anger pushing through the cold. "Why me? Why are they after me?" Her eyes softened painfully. "Because you touched the future they stole." Ethan stared. "What does that mean?" "It means," she said, breath trembling, "that you saved the only children who ever escaped Iron Veil's first experiment, and that makes you a threat." Ethan exhaled slowly, the weight landing on him like a fallen tree. "You said they'd come for me. You didn't say they'd come this fast." "I misjudged their desperation," she whispered, "and their fear." A shadow moved behind her. Ethan raised the knife instantly, only to see a small figure step out of the snow. One of the boys from the river, pale, shaking, silent. He looked at Ethan. not with fear, with something deeper, recognition. The boy raised a small, trembling hand and pointed behind Ethan. Ethan spun just as a dart hissed past his shoulder and buried itself into the tree trunk. Iron Veil had caught up. The boy clung to his mother's coat. The woman grabbed Ethan's arm. "We can't stay here. Run now, or none of us reach tomorrow." Shadow barked once, sharp. A warning. Ethan tightened his grip on the knife, stared through the forest where shadows moved closer, and made his choice. "Lead the way." The woman nodded. "Stay close. The cold will guide us." Behind them, Iron Veil voices cut through the storm. Ahead of them, the forest swallowed the three of them, the soldier, the mother, the silent child. And the frozen mountains braced for what would come next. Nightfall descended fast over the Cascades, winter tightening around the mountains, until even the trees seemed to brace against the cold. Ethan Cole followed the blonde woman and her silent child deeper into the snow-dark forest. Shadow, moving like a phantom at his side, the cold guided them in a strange way. Subtle changes in the wind, in the frost crusting the branches, in the quiet rhythm of the child's steps. Ethan didn't understand how, but the boy seemed to sense danger long before it arrived. Every few minutes, the child looked back at Ethan, eyes wide, not with fear, but with an unnerving knowledge, as if he saw things Ethan couldn't, as if he remembered things no child should. Ethan's breath cut in sharp clouds as they climbed a ridge. The woman walked ahead with a grace that didn't belong to someone exhausted or frightened. She moved like someone trained to carry fear without letting it crack her stride. Yet her shoulders trembled now and then, as though the weight of the world sat unevenly on her back. "Your sons," Ethan finally said, his voice low. "You said they were altered." She didn't slow. "Iron Veil doesn't kidnap for ransom. They harvest potential." "Potential for what?" She stopped. Snow whispered across the ground between them. The child stepped close to her leg as she looked at Ethan with eyes that reflected both moonlight and sorrow. For obedience, for silence, for brilliance without will. Ethan understood too clearly. Weapons. Precisely. She pressed a hand to the boy's head. "But my sons never broke the way Iron Veil wanted. They learned to hide pieces of themselves, to survive until I could take them back." Ethan exhaled a long, fogged breath. "And now they're hunting them, hunting you. Hunting anything that threatens their secrecy," she said. "And you? You pulled them from the river. That made you part of the equation. It made you visible." Ethan rubbed a hand over his face. "So what? They think I'm helping you?" "They think you will," she whispered, "and they are rarely wrong about the instincts of soldiers." Before Ethan could respond, Shadow froze, tail rigid. The woman stiffened too. The boy's breathing went silent. Then Ethan heard it, the faint hum of a drone circling far above, its red light muted by falling snow. "They've found our trail," Ethan said. The woman nodded. "But they haven't found him yet." "Him who?" Ethan demanded. She pointed toward a jagged line of stone rising above the tree line. A cave entrance, dark as a wound in the mountain. "My other son. He went ahead. He always scouts for us." Ethan's stomach tightened. A child alone out here? But before he could question her, a sharp, distant sound cut through the night. Not gunfire, not a dart. A scream, small, strangled, abruptly silenced. The woman's eyes widened with a pain so raw it punched straight through Ethan's chest. She grabbed the boy's shoulders. "Stay with him," she whispered, voice trembling. "Do not move." Then she looked at Ethan, no fear, only fierce resolve burning beneath her grief. They've taken him. The wind carried the truth in the silence that followed. Ethan felt every instinct in him ignite. The SEAL training, the sniper's discipline, the soul of a soldier who had watched too many innocents swallowed by the world's worst men. "Which direction?" Ethan asked. She didn't need to answer. The boy tugged Ethan's sleeve, pointing with a trembling hand toward a narrow slope where the snow was disturbed by fresh tracks. 3 sets of footprints, 1 small, 2 large. Ethan's pulse slammed like a drum in his ears. "Go!" the woman breathed, her voice cracking. "Go before they sedate him, before they erase what's left of who he is." Shadow barked once, sharp and urgent. Ethan sprinted. The tracks cut a brutal path through the trees, the snow broken, scattered by struggle. The forest around him felt alive, listening, waiting. His mind sharpened into the razor focus that had carried him through war, measure distance, control breath, predict movement. But unlike combat, this wasn't a mission. This was a promise he had never spoken, but now felt carved into his bones. He would not let them take that child again, not while he lived. The tracks descended into a narrow ravine where the snow thinned and the air grew colder, almost unnaturally so. Shadow growled, the fur along his neck rising. Ethan tightened his grip on the black-sheathed knife. The blade felt warmer now, as if reacting to something in the air, some pulse of danger threading through the night. He slowed as he reached a clearing. A small figure lay in the snow, the missing boy, his chest rising and falling quickly, consciousness flickering. Ethan rushed forward, then stopped cold as a voice drifted from the darkness. "Careful, Cole." A man stepped out from behind a rock formation, wearing Iron Veil's unofficial signature. Dark tactical layers, no insignia, no hesitation. His face was younger than Ethan expected, but his eyes were old, cold in a way that suggested decades of cruelty etched in silence. Another operative emerged from the shadows behind him. "2 of us," the first man said calmly. "1 of you." Ethan's jaw locked. "He's just a kid." "He's their property," the man replied, "and now so are you." Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. Shadow stepped forward, snarling. The operative lifted a tranquilizer pistol. Ethan's mind broke down the angles, the distances, the probabilities. He could throw the knife. Hit one. Maybe. But the other? The boy stirred, weakly reaching toward Ethan. That single motion shattered Ethan's hesitation. "If you want me," Ethan said, voice low and deadly, "you're going to have to work a hell of a lot harder." The first operative smirked. "Gladly." He fired. Ethan threw the knife. Time split. Snow erupted in a white plume as the dart flew. The knife struck the shooter's wrist, sending the dart wide. Shadow lunged. The second operative moved to fire. But a blur of black and blonde tore through the tree line. The mother, silent, furious, terrifying. She hit the second man with a crack of impact that sent him sprawling into the snow. Ethan dove for the boy, scooping him into his arms as Shadow pinned the first operative. The boy gasped, clinging to Ethan's coat. "He's sedated," the woman whispered, grabbing her son's face between trembling hands. "But not fully. They didn't finish. Thank God they didn't finish." Ethan knelt beside her, adrenaline shaking through him. "We have to move, now." She nodded, tears burning in the cold air. "Yes, before more come." Ethan lifted the unconscious child, Shadow circling protectively. But before they disappeared into the forest again, the woman looked back at Ethan, eyes burning not with gratitude, but with something deeper, something ancient. "You weren't supposed to be a part of this," she said, "but now you are." Ethan swallowed. "Then tell me what comes next." She looked toward the mountains, where a cold wind rose like a warning whisper. "War," she said. Snow hammered the mountains with a ruthless rhythm as Ethan Cole carried the unconscious boy through the forest, Shadow pacing tightly beside him, muscles coiled. The blonde woman followed close behind, her breaths sharp with panic and fading adrenaline. The storm had swallowed the world so completely that even the trees seemed to disappear into curtains of white. Yet Ethan felt eyes everywhere, Iron Veil eyes hunting through the cold. "How far?" he asked. "Where do we go?" The woman pointed toward a ridge barely visible through the snow. "There's a place above the valley, a shelter carved into the mountain stone. My sons know it. They'll be safe there until sunrise." Ethan clenched his jaw as he climbed, boots slipping on ice. His arms ached from carrying the boy, but he held him tighter, unwilling to let a single thing separate them again. The child clung weakly to his coat, half conscious, fingers trembling like they were remembering something terrifying, something stolen. The woman whispered, "He's still fighting the sedative. Talk to him. A voice he trusts will help bring him back." Ethan exhaled, leaning closer. "You're safe, buddy. I've got you. I won't let them take you again." The boy's eyes flickered, faint, but present. "Cold," he murmured. "I know. Hold on." The woman caught Ethan's gaze. "He isn't talking about the temperature. He's sensing them." Ethan understood instantly. The cold wasn't weather. It was presence. Iron Veil was close again, maybe too close. They reached the top of the ridge around the same moment. A distant roar cut through the storm. Engines. Multiple. Moving fast. Ethan cursed under his breath. "They're sweeping the valley." "They always sweep," the woman said, "but they don't always find." She pressed her hand against a large boulder, pushing aside a slab of ice. A narrow entrance appeared, natural stone, but shaped by deliberate hands. The boy whispered something unintelligible and reached toward the darkness like it was home. Ethan followed them inside. The air changed instantly, still cold, but quieter, wrapped in an ancient stillness that didn't belong to soldiers or hunters. The small chamber was carved with perfectly straight lines, strange markings in the stone illuminated faintly by the light spilling from the entrance. Ethan frowned. "This isn't just a hiding spot." "No," the woman said. "It's older than Iron Veil, older than the town. My sons found it years ago, long before I understood what they truly were." Ethan brushed frost from the markings. "Do you know what these symbols mean?" "Not exactly," she whispered, "but my sons do. They say this place remembers." "Remembers what?" "Children who shouldn't have survived." Ethan felt those words sink deep into him. The boy in his arms stirred again, gripping his coat with surprising strength. The woman touched the child's face. Voice, trembling. "They cannot erase you," she whispered to him. "Not anymore. Not now." A distant crack echoed from the forest, bouncing through the stone chamber. Ethan stiffened. "They're tracking us." "Yes," she said, her expression hardening. "And you know what that means." "We run?" Ethan asked. She shook her head slowly, her eyes glowing with something fierce and tragic. "We make our stand." Ethan didn't argue. He simply set the boy down gently, shadow curling protectively around him. Then Ethan stepped toward the entrance, knife in hand. The woman moved beside him, frozen breath, trembling fingers, and a resolve that could have carved its own place into the mountain. Snow swirled violently outside as dark shapes emerged from the tree line. Iron Veil, 5 or 6 men in total, moving with precision even the storm couldn't disrupt. One of them spoke through a speaker. "Ethan Cole, surrender the subjects and step forward. You are surrounded." Ethan felt something in him settle, calm, cold, a sniper's mind finding its center. "You first," he muttered. The woman placed a hand on his arm. "Cole, if they capture me, promise me something." "No. You don't even know what I was going to ask." "I know it's something you don't walk away from." Her eyes softened with sorrow. "You can't protect us all. The world doesn't let men like you live with clean hands." "I don't need clean," Ethan said quietly. "Just alive." The Iron Veil leader stepped into view, his tranquilizer pistol raised. "Last warning, Cole." Snow whipped between them like shards of glass. The woman leaned close, her voice almost lost in the wind. "My sons believe you're the only one who can keep us together. Don't prove them wrong." Ethan didn't get the chance to respond. The operative fired. Shadow lunged into the open. The dart missed Ethan by inches. Another shot, another. Ethan moved through the storm like instinct carved into bone, closing the distance, blade flashing. A struggle erupted, snow, breath, steel, desperation. The woman fought beside him with a ferocity that didn't belong to someone trained in any school. It belonged to a mother. The boy inside the cave screamed, a sound that shook the air like the mountain itself was startled awake. And then something changed. The cold tightened, but not from weather. A wave of it swept across the clearing, the kind that dropped all human instinct into silence. The operatives paused, startled. The woman gasped. "He's awake." Ethan turned. The boy, barefoot, trembling, eyes glowing with something ancient, stood at the cave entrance, not glowing with light, glowing with knowing. A storm of presence radiated from him, rippling through the snow. Iron Veil hesitated. The woman whispered, broken and reverent, "He remembers." The boy stepped forward, raising a hand not in violence, but in warning. "No more," he whispered. The cold deepened further, enough to make every breath visible, enough to make Iron Veil stagger. Ethan didn't fully understand, but he didn't need to. He grabbed the woman's hand. "We move, now." The boy nodded once, just once, and the cold surged, not attacking, not harming, just pushing the operatives back, disorienting them long enough for Ethan and the family to disappear into the storm. They vanished into the forest as Iron Veil struggled to regain control. The mountains swallowed their footprints, and for the first time, Ethan felt something unexpected threading through the fear. Purpose. He wasn't protecting them because he saved them. He was protecting them because something in them, something unexplainable, had chosen him. The cold followed behind them like a guardian or a warning of the war still coming. In the quiet after the storm, when the danger has passed and the night grows calm again, we're reminded of a simple truth. Miracles don't always arrive with trumpets from heaven. Sometimes they come as courage, kindness, or a single act of compassion that saves a life. Maybe that is how God chooses to work in our everyday world. Not always with lightning or burning bushes, but through people who step forward when others step back, through strangers who become protectors, through moments that whisper instead of shout. And if you are watching this story tonight, remember this: God has walked with you through storms you never spoke about. He has shielded you from dangers you never saw. And He still places angels, seen and unseen, around your life every single day. As you go about your week, may you carry this reminder with you that even when the world feels heavy, even when the night is long, God's grace is longer, His mercy is wider, and His love is stronger than anything you face. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of God's quiet miracles, please share it with someone who needs hope tonight. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another story of courage, faith, and the unseen hands that guide us home. From our family to yours, may the Lord bless you. May He protect your home. May He comfort your heart. And may His light follow you wherever you go. God bless you, and thank you for watching.